Marketing Your Private Practice is a podcast where you'll learn easy to implement tips and strategies to grow your business without spending all day online. I'm your host, Kathy Colaiacovo, and I teach practitioners the Thrive marketing method to create simple and streamlined plans by focusing on long-term strategies, not just social media. Discover ways to spend less time on your marketing, attract more clients, and build the financial freedom that comes with a thriving practice. One where you have time left in your day for the people and things that matter to you. Hey, private practice heroes. Thanks for tuning into the podcast today. I'm your host, Kathy Colaiacovo, and I've got a question for you. Do you ever find yourself looking up at the end of a long workday, sometimes way too long, only to look back at what you accomplished and feel like you got nothing done? Wasted days and wasted nights. Wasn't that a country song? I'll have to Google that one. Anyhow, one of the main reasons practice and business owners say they cannot get to their marketing is because they have no time left in their day to do that kind of work because they're busy doing other things. But whenever I do strategy sessions with folks and we look into where their time goes each day, we're often finding an hour, sometimes even two, of what I call wasted time. Wasted time is typically why they have no time left for other things like marketing. And that one is most often put on the chopping block when there's no time left to do anything but close up, shut down, and go home for the day. Many practice owners run out of time each day, and this is what's holding them back from doing their marketing. Yet we often find when we look at the actual activities they're doing, there is lots of wasted time happening, which if the time were dealt with and not wasted in the first place, would leave you with more time to use towards other work that needs to get done, even that marketing that a lot of people like to put off as much as possible. And so this is why in today's episode, I want to share with you some of the best ways that you can determine where your time is being lost, if you're losing any time, and how you can stop it from happening by giving you some strategies to deal with wasted time and bring in a little more balance to your practice or business. Maybe even add a little time in your day that you can use for marketing and start booking more clients from those marketing activities. Because I really do believe it's possible to streamline your marketing so that it's not taking hours a day and so that you can work at it in a useful manner and focus on those activities that are bringing clients and revenue. There have been lots of studies that have told us about wasted time, and this has been happening for years. When I started my business in 2008, there was lots of statistics even back then about how much wasted time is happening at work. Now, a lot of these studies do focus on employees at corporations and big companies. And some of the studies are actually kind of frightening. A lot of time, it's information they're actually questioning of the employees themselves. So they're saying straight out, yeah, I probably waste 2 hours of work every day, or at least 30 minutes. One study that I looked at with some statistics said 89% of employees said they wasted at least 30 minutes of time during every workday. 16% were saying about 2 hours every day. And a lot of them are saying that they're doing lots of non-work related activities. More than 50% of employees say they do that kind of stuff and take short breaks by doing these non-work related activities. So when you think about it, there's tons of ways and reasons why we're wasting time in our day. And this is why it is important to figure out what is happening and identify that wasted time so that you can put in some strategies to make sure that you're stopping it. Now, I will confess that one of the ways that I keep myself on track, and I've long been accused of using lists upon lists upon lists and being organized, is because that is what works for me. I do need lists and other things that help keep my ADHD brain in focus. And they help me know what I need to work on and where I need to spend my time and what I'm doing with my time or planning to do with my time. It's just the way that I work. Not everybody likes lists, but sometimes it's a good idea to make some lists of things, because that's one of the ways that you can potentially identify where you're wasting some of your time. But not everybody works that way. And I get that. For me, I had something happen recently that really spoke to me on how important these lists are and how important my daily planner is to me being productive during my workday. I recently had some things going on. I was feeling very overwhelmed with what was on my plate. And it was also at this point that I spent a week without my full focus planner, and I was literally lost without those daily lists. Now, this is a special planner that I use for managing my daily tasks. It was created by Michael Hyatt, and I've been using these planners for about 5 years now. I didn't plan to be without my planner, but it happened. So these are meant to be used 3 months at a time. So I generally buy 4 at a time. It's enough for a year, but I misjudged what was going on. I thought I had another empty one in there, and I didn't. But it made such a difference for me just by not having this plan of what to do, even just for 1 week. It was a real challenge because this planner is what keeps me guided. I keep my goal lists in there. I keep my weekly and daily to-do lists. I keep my notes of what to do if I have a meeting or something I need to remember. You know, when I'm in a coaching call with the Thrive Marketing Academy people, if I tell them I'm going to get them a link to a blog or something, this is where I put it all. And so I spent this week without it, and I found myself, a little lost, and I noticed that I was wasting more time doing things that weren't keeping me as focused because I had not had my strategy item, which is my planner that helps keep me on track. And for me, without that guidance, my brain likes to go places I'm not happy about sometimes. And that's where I was. And I really noticed that during that time, I was wasting a lot of time, and I spent more time doing work on those days because I wasn't finishing everything I needed to do. And in fact, I missed a couple things because I didn't have them in the planner. And I know this isn't a story that's unique to me. I'm sure many of you have been here too. Running a private practice or a business takes a lot of energy and a lot of organization, and you're trying to keep all the pieces in play, do the sales, do the marketing, do the working with clients. And we all use different tools that will help us keep on track. But the systems work best when you combine those tools with the knowledge of knowing, are you wasting time or not? Where are you putting your focus, and understanding what's going on and how you can avoid that. Then, if you add in some steps to staying productive and on track, not only will you be able to focus and finish things, but you'll have that more balance in your life that you're looking for, and you'll probably find yourself being more productive too. But if you're not paying attention to what's going on in your day, and you don't have anything that keeps you on track and gives you a guide of what to do, you probably will find that you're wasting a lot of time. So when you look around and say that you don't have time to do, XX activities or these activities, whatever it might be, one thing I always tell people is, have you actually done, a time assessment of what you've been doing and where your time's been going, to know and understand where you actually are losing time or not. So when you have this plan and you have this guide that helps you know what you're doing and where you're spending your time, then when you finish your work day, which hopefully is at a reasonable hour, you can get out and enjoy yourself with some of the hobbies you like to do, the things that you like to do, or places you like to go when you're not working. And I do believe we all need that time to decompress too. For me, in the summertime, I do a lot in my garden. It's a hobby that I have. We started a garden a couple years ago, and my husband and I like to do some of that stuff together. He often does the heavier work, the harder labor, and I do more of the pointing and guiding, but it is something that we do and we get out and we do together. And I think it's important for every practice and business owner to make sure that you understand where your time goes every day. So what I wanted to do today is share some of my best tips for helping you identify where the wasted time could be and identify ways and strategies that will help you avoid it so that you can have a better organized and more productive workday. But this is a two-part process. So the first part starts just by understanding where you might be wasting your time and the strategies you can use to reduce it. The second part is planning to set up your day so that you are finding yourself more productive. And you can't get to the planning, the second part, without first figuring out where and when you are wasting time. So that's why I always start here when this is something I do with clients. The reality is, for a lot of practice and business owners, small business owners, there's a lot of people out there that have that dream of having a 3-day work week or 4-day work week and making 6 figures or more. So if that is something you're thinking about and planning for, I promise you that you need to know and understand where your time goes every day, because that's what you're going to need to be efficient so that you can get yourself to that place where you might have a 3-day or 4-day work week and still earning the income that you're looking to earn. Because the truth is, most of us don't spend our time planning our day to work when we're at our best. And we're not always planning our work day to know and understand all the items that we need to do that day to be productive, to have items checked off our list, to have projects finishing and being able to get to the end point where you do complete the work that you're looking to complete. The reality is, a lot of people run our days in a very random way, which for a lot of folks, I always match up. Folks that are doing the random acts of marketing are almost always the people that are also randomly planning out their workday, which really means they're not planning it at all. So if this is something you want to look for and do and aim for that goal of earning more income and having a balanced work week there, you are going to want to make sure you identify your wasted time and you plan on being more productive. So this starts by doing 2 things. Step 1, identify when, where, and how you're wasting your time. And step 2 is to develop strategies to overcome that wasted time and plan to be more productive. So this always starts off with, how do you even identify your wasted time? Well, it's not really rocket science, but it does take some dedication, I will tell you, to figure this out. And the best way that I've found over time to figure out where your wasted time is going is to choose 2 normal work weeks in your life. So you don't want to plan to do this when you might be out 2 days of a week that you're normally not gone, or partly on vacation, whatever it is. You've got to pick 2 normal work weeks. And you actually want to keep track of all of the time every day and the work that you're doing and the work that you're not doing. And you need to identify what's really happening. Now, I like to use this. I do this activity probably every year at least, sometimes every 2 years. And I have a book that I buy from Amazon, and it's called Time Tracker. And it looks like it's created by bookfactory.com. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. But what I like about it is that it's, number one, it's a coil book. I like that for some reason. I don't know why I like the coil books, but I do. But it has a section, it's really intended for someone to keep track of their time. I just like the way it's laid out, and it fits for me to be able to keep track. So it's got sections like for date, client, task description. So it'd be the kind of thing somebody would probably use to track if they were tracking their time manually versus using an online tool for tracking time. What I like is it has a bunch of columns. So I put in my time when I start something, whatever the task is. I put a little description of it, and I put the start time. And then it has a spot for the finish time. But then if I get interrupted or something happens and I stop that, I put an X into it, and then I put a line underneath and I identify what made me change and not finish that. And then once I've had the distraction time identified, if I go back to the work that I was doing, I continue on and I track that time again as well. Then if it's all finished, I start a new task, I start all over. So what you're doing here is really paying attention to almost every moment of your day, what you're doing. And it could be things like, if I get up and go make a coffee in the kitchen, I write that down. If I go to the washroom and I take a break for that, I write it down. If I zip down, not that I'm allowed to do laundry anymore because I fell on the stairs one time doing laundry. And so then there was a rule in the house made that I shouldn't be doing laundry. Plus, apparently, laundry is not considered done unless you do all the different parts versus, putting laundry in the washer and not finishing it. Anyhow, that's my laundry sob story that's going out there today. But the thing is, if you're going down when you work from home, especially, and you're putting laundry in, or you're putting the dog out, or you're playing with the dog for 5 minutes, or a cat, whatever it is, you want to track everything because you will be really, really surprised when you count all that time up in the end. I promise you. And the idea is you want to pay attention to everything in your environment so that you're keeping track of the work you're doing, the work you're not doing, the distractions that are happening, but also other elements that might be playing a part in your lost time. Maybe you're paying attention to the food you eat, the time of day, the routines that you have starting your workday and finishing your workday. You also want to add into this a few other things. I always add a column at the end here, and I write in things like I might be feeling or what's going on. This is how I identified, for a time there, I was falling asleep, I'll be honest, about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's when I discovered from my tracking, when I was paying attention to and tracking my time for a couple of weeks, that I was eating, some candy or sugar later in the afternoon or after lunch. And then what was happening was about an hour or two later, I was writing down that I was having a nap. I was taking these naps. So paying attention to everything will help you figure out, are there outside factors, affecting this and creating this wasted time? You want to be able to recognize patterns that are going to help you develop the strategies to work through and work with that wasted time so that you can avoid it in the future. So as you make this list, you'll probably notice things on the list, like maybe the times that you were also really productive. And you want to pay attention to that as well, because this is often the way that you're going to pay attention to when do you work best for yourself. This is where we often identify that some people are morning people and some people are not. And following this kind of way of tracking is how you can have all of this information. And then you can look at it and analyze what you find in your notes. And those notes are what's going to help you discover what is not working and know when and where you're wasting the time. But you're also going to know what affected you in those scenarios, what happened. You're often going to be able to see the wasted time and understand how it came about. That's when you're going to need to make some changes and use a strategy for the next time it happens to work through the issue areas so you can better use that time and get to a place where you're not jumping, off ship there and wasting time. Ideally, for whatever you're listing in this tracking sheet, you want to look and understand how it happened, how you got derailed, what happened when it didn't work, what happened when it did, and then you can look at strategies on how to fix this and how you got off course or how you got back on course too. And this is why in your tracking, paying attention to your environment and noting what's also going on around you will help you as well. This is where you're often going to learn what knocked you off course, okay? This is where you're often going to learn how you can plan to overcome these roadblocks and put these strategies in place so that you don't get derailed. And instead, you succeed at finishing the items on your list and having focused time to do the work so that you're not wasting that time, especially if you're like a lot of people, because there are all those studies out there that come from employees. But when you're a small business owner, you're working on your own, the distracted time, the wasted time is typically going to be very similar unless you're paying really good attention and keeping focused on what you need to do to be productive, when and where and how that's going to work out best. So often people get a little confused on, okay, now that you know what's happening, how do you put these strategies in place? The strategies are going to be really different for each scenario on how you're doing this and how the wasted time is coming about and what you're doing in the wasted time. But often this is where you can look at these trends in your tracking sheet and understand what's going on. So a common example that I find from a lot of people when we do this exercise is, especially for people that work from home office, like me, is that there are often family and friends who don't understand or don't respect that you're actually at work. Okay. Now, this has changed a little. Back in 2008, when I started, it was a little more unique for people to be working from home or working remotely, but we're still working, right? And the pandemic has changed how a lot of people's workdays are structured now. So this is something I've seen actually happen and start up since the pandemic happened. So when you're looking back at your notes, if you see, which again, this is the most common thing I've ever found in these assessments, that 7 times a week or so, you're losing time because a friend or family member called to talk and you spent 10 or 15 minutes on the phone with them. Well, this is what got you off track. This is where the wasted time came into place. A phone call came in, it distracted you, you answered the call. Sometimes, it's 5 minutes, sometimes 10, 15. I've had a couple of these where we notice, people were talking for 30 minutes or more. 30 minutes is a good chunk of change of time in a workday. And it could be a time that you're devoted to getting specific things done. So when these types of distractions happen that cause the wasted time, the things that you can pay attention to and put these strategies in place, that's where you want to figure out, what is the issue? What is the effect of the issue happening? And what kind of strategy can you do with that in the future to avoid it? So looking at this example of the issue being friends or family calling to chat, the effect that happens here is you spend time with them. Yes, definitely that's important, spending time with family or friends, but not when it's keeping you from working on a project or keeping you from work that you had started, but you're not getting to finish. And then maybe you've got a client booked afterwards and you're going to run out of time here. So this is where you have to come up with some ideas. These ones were really specific ones that had happened to me and several of my clients. So we came up with a couple things. And one of the first things I can tell you about this kind of situation is you have to remember one thing that a good friend of mine told me one time, and that is no is a complete sentence. And it is okay for you to say no to others because when you do this, it lets you say yes to yourself. So sometimes for these friends or family calling to chat calls, it's going to have to be something where you say, no, you can't talk now. Not if it's going to derail you from the work you're trying to do. So a couple ways that you could do this without being so harsh is just saying no. If you do pick up the phone when they call, and often people will, especially for family and friends, because it could be an emergency. You want to be clear with those people that you are at work, that maybe you're going to call them back after dinner or when you're done with your workday. I like saying that a lot of times when I'm done with my workday. You could say something as nice as, hey, Jen, it's great to hear you. I'm glad there's nothing urgent happening here, but I'm in the middle of a project. I'm going to have to call you back later, probably after dinner. That just sets the tone for the person on the phone to understand you've acknowledged that there's no issue, there's nothing urgent, but you're going to have to call them back later. Now, another way that you can do this, if you have caller ID and don't know who's calling, is just don't answer the phone. Let it go to voicemail and then call the person back when you're not working or when you have time blocked to take calls, or if it's family or friends, you may want to call outside work hours. Now, one thing that I do say is for a lot of people, the family and friends calling during the work hours can turn into a real issue. I've had a couple clients that this was a big problem. They didn't know how to deal with their family members. And so sometimes it's just a matter of sitting them down and saying straight out, I understand that you called me, but I was working then, and it's really challenging for me to talk to you in the middle of the day. So, if you do need to call to chat, it's a lot better for me if you can call in the evening. So just going through some of these simple things like that is key in helping you put these strategies in place so that you're prepared and ready for that time when Joan calls you and you need to let her know. Or maybe you're going to have a conversation outside of that phone call to get that and set it in place as well. So in both of these examples, what you're really doing is having a strategy in place so you're prepared on what to say so that it will sound natural and you're not hurting anybody's feelings either. You're just subtly letting them know you're in the middle of work and you'll call them later on. most people will respect this and they'll learn it too, especially after they have a few futile attempts trying to talk to you in your workday when you're at work. So this is one strategy as an example of one thing that is a common way that people waste time in their daytime. So knowing and understanding that that's one of the things distracting you, this is how you can set things up so that you can make sure that you're keeping those time-wasted distractions at bay as much as possible. So keeping track of your day, of your work, and learning what's happening, how you're getting distracted, how you're wasting the time is going to be really important knowledge that you have. Then you'll be able to look at it from a variety of angles and work out a strategy to deal with the issues as they happen. Sometimes we're also our own worst enemy in making this wasted time happen as well, because you'll often find that when you look back at your tracking, you'll see that it was just a simple matter of you just didn't stay on track. So you may need to do some of the things that will just keep you on track as best as possible. Now, one thing that I started using in the past year, I'm just looking at it here as I record this. It's a clock that I have, and it's a really neat clock. It has 6 sides to it. So it's a clock on one side, but you tilt it. It's kind of like a hexagon, like a stop sign. And you tilt it and you'll hear that beep there. So I've put it to the 5-minute timer. There's a 15, 30, 45, and 60 minute. So what I like to do with this timer is if I'm going to say to myself, I'm going to work on something for 15 minutes, I turn it to the 15-minute side. The beep goes on and it beeps when the 15 minutes is up. The big thing you need to do is identify where you're wasting your time. If you don't know that, you're not going to know how to plan your day and move ahead and move forward with this. So it is important to start tracking your workday if you want to start staying productive and being more productive than you might be now, so that you're not always saying, I just didn't have any time left in the day to do XXX, whatever things you're missing out on. The thing that you want to really come from and your action step from today's episode is do whatever you can to figure out, track yourself ideally for 2 weeks. Even 1 week would be helpful, but make sure it's a normal week so that you can see in that normal time what is going on, where are you getting distracted, where's the wasted time coming in, and what can you do to see any trends or things that might be making it happen, and then what strategies can you put in place to avoid that in the future. Because once you've identified your wasted time in your day and you have some strategies to manage those distractions, you still want to plan to be as productive as possible, which means managing the hours in your workday and the hours you have to dedicate to your work. And this is Kathy Colaiacovo signing off and saying thanks for tuning in. And remember, to thrive in practice means identifying where you might be wasting time in your workday so that you can create the strategies to manage those distractions and be as productive as possible. And I'll see you next time. You can find all of our show notes and resources mentioned at marketingyourprivatepractice.com. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram at pepperitmarketing and say hi. I'd love to hear any feedback you have, and make sure to rate and review the podcast and hit subscribe on your favorite player so you don't miss any future episodes.